first off, with the meeting called to order, we need a roll call. And so I guess
me.
that's you. I need to hand that off to you.
All right. Rick Fieldhouse.
I am present.
Charles Watson.
Present.
Okay. Joy Hughes.
I'm here.
Deborah Burkle.
Here.
Chuck.
Oh, Chuck Z.
Chucky Z. Chucky Z. He was a creator of Chucky Z's.
And Liam Decken.
Right here.
Okay.
And I should say, Mr. Chair, is that Faye Bates is the voice that you do not get to see the face of so
Wow.
far this evening because she has not turned on the video. So she is our new office assistant. So Bobby retired and we hired Faye and she's doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, I saw there was a new name on the email, so good to meet you, Faye, at least in this this circumstance. Appreciate your help. Okay. So next up, I need to make sure are there any public comments?
I do not see any attendees, so none.
So yeah, I'm just gonna have to at some point call it and say, well, we don't have any public, so we have no public comments. All right, so we can show that for the record. We did at least ask. Okay, next order of business is we have minutes from our February meeting that were distributed. Hopefully you all had a chance to go through them. At this point, are there any additions, deletions, corrections to the minutes as they were distributed? Or any discussion about the minutes as they were distributed?
Nope.
Okay. Well, if there is no discussion of the minutes, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
All right, so thank you, Deborah, for moving. And Chuck, did I hear you make a noise for a second?
Yes.
Okay, so Deborah moved and Chuck seconded to approve the minutes.
And that's Chuck Zickafoos. So
Chuck
that Faye is aware.
Chuck
Yeah,
Z.
Zickafoos. So I guess all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, the minutes of the last meeting are approved. And okay, I will need to get down to City Hall, sign off on those.
We
So,
expect
I
you
guess-
at we expect you at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow.
I'll tell you what, I'm actually gonna make a point. I have a chance to get down on Friday, so
Good.
I'll come down on Friday. It'd be Friday afternoon because I need to work in the morning, but at least I got the afternoon free. So I'll come down and just make myself known.
We
That way
appreciate
save us all the cost of a stamp.
we appreciate that very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Well, hey, it's my tax dollars too. If I can save it just by walking down there, get some exercise, I might as well. I win both ways. Okay, next up, we have a well, for I guess lack of a better word, a report on the CLG grant. And Doug, I assume that is you, so I'm just going to let you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So first of all, I have to say thank you for spending a year, and I've thanked you before, of coming up with a work program because it makes my life so much easier. I know you guys put a lot of time into trying to figure that all out, but it made it really good. This year when the CLG grant program came out, we had the conversation about applying for the grant program. I think the chair mentioned last time is it's money that we can get, so just go get it. So based upon your priorities for considering creation of an historic district in the downtown area, I put together the application per our conversation, which was, I think, like 3 days before the grant was due.
Mhm.
And I kind of blocked out a whole bunch of time. So fortunately, I had some examples of some different material. I talked with SHPO office. They gave me some good suggestions as well, and put together the grant. And so you see in your packet is the copy of the actual grant application and all the rationale for it. Also in your packet this evening is a copy of the award. So we did receive that grant award. So the project we're going to work on for roughly the next 13 months or so is that community engagement and outreach and education component, to talk with property owners and businesses in the downtown about the possibility, feasibility of creating an historic district, be it one that's on the National Register or if it's a local historic district. Robert from SHPO has offered to come talk with us as we go through this particular process. So our overall project cost is $16,703. I did put some time in for the commission members because I know you're going to want to go talk with businesses and property owners about the potential benefits of all this. And we've talked about it before. There's some hesitation by some about, oh, more regulations, this, and we've always said, and we've had these conversations for going on 7 years now, it depends on what kind of program you set up. So we got a grant of a little over, let's see, what was it? Well, we got a grant for $6,800. We're going to match it with a little over $9,900 between cash in hand, commission time, staff time, and so forth, to be able to do all of this. My first report is due on July 15th, just around the corner. So now that we've got the award, got everything signed, I will need to do a request for proposals that will go out. So I'm hoping to get that out here in the next couple of weeks. So I'll be able to report that we've at least got the RFP out on the street. And we're going through that particular process. As we have done in past grant awards, staff will go through the scoring and the evaluations of any responses that we receive. The successful consultant will negotiate a contract between the city and the consultant. We'll work on the scope of work, which is pretty well outlined in the grant application. So we kind of follow that pretty much lockstep. Historic Preservation Office likes it when we do that. We're following through with what we said we would do. And then we'll be off and running basically on this project. At your next meeting that will occur in August, we'll give you an update of kind of where we're at in the process. May not be a whole lot at that point in time. By the time we go out for 3 weeks or so for an RFP, score, evaluate, enter into a contract, all of a sudden we're kind of looking at the middle of July. So they will just kind of be at the early stages of their process. But I think it does provide the opportunity for the commission to provide some input and guidance to the consultant as well as what you're looking for, questions you might want to ask, your level of engagement that you want to have within this particular process. And we'll wrap this whole thing up in about June, end of June or so, 2023. There's a whole bunch of reporting that comes on the backside. So through these grants, for those who have not been through them, it's in the documents itself, but I've got all these milestones that I have to prepare reports and submit to state parks. And we will meet, as we always do, we meet all of our timelines to be able to do all of that. Because this is an educational process, I will take some opportunities when available with the city council to kind of give them a briefing of where we're at going through this and what the commission is doing. They are already aware that we applied for the grant, and they're aware that we were awarded the grant. So that's all positive. we'll end up kind of with a bundle. I'm not sure what it's going to look like yet at the end of all of this, of feedback that we get from property owners and businesses about kind of their temperature. What do you think about creating a national register or a local historic district in the downtown area? Always as a reminder, the downtown area is approximately 108 acres. We're really kind of looking at the commercial piece. We're not looking at the residential to the north. We're not looking at the residential to the south. And we've already done a lot of work with inventory activities and so forth over the years, looking at kind of that primary area of the downtown. See, what else can I tell you about this? Curry Gill from SHPO is always, she's a wealth of information, and Robert's always a wealth of information. The city of Dallas helped us out on this because they're going through a similar process right now. So they provided some good insight and guidance to be able to obtain the particular grant that we were awarded. So really, I don't have a whole lot, Mr. Chair. It's just kind of like, this is kind of where we're at I got a couple other things I'll talk to you about, but that's kind of where we're at with the CLG grant. Any questions?
Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Chuck, go ahead.
How many consultants do you expect will apply?
I'm not sure, Chuck. We'll push this out in the Daily Journal of Commerce, and there's a list of consultants that SHPO has as well. We'll make sure that they're aware of it. So we'll send it out. Remember, the last time we got a grant, we only got one response from a consultant. So we could get from 1 to 5. This is a little bit unique and different because we're really, when you think about when we went through the process for the Cameo Theater and the inventory work for the sidewalk stamps and the horse rings and the mailboxes, before that, when we did the inventory work, it's kind of a specialized field. And this one's even a little bit more unique because we're talking about educational outreach and talking with property owners. So it's kind of those, but the consultants have that experience because, they've worked with other communities who've gone through the process of trying to create a local or national register district in their downtown. So we'll see.
Okay.
Do we have criteria for the consultant? I mean, do you have an established criteria that you plan to use?
Yes, we do. So the city has a template
Okay.
for all of our consultant services. I did not include that because it's really laborious and technical.
Yeah.
But so we have a template and we'll go through it. And then there's some subsets of that particular template. We'll be able to take the information that SHPO is looking for to be able to embed in that.
Mhm.
And then we'll push it out. Like I said, it'll be up on the city's website. So I'll send you an email when it's up there. We'll send it out to the Daily Journal of Commerce, which is kind of the typical norm to hire consultant services. And then we'll wait and see. Sometimes in the past, I've gone through a process where we've said consultants need to come meet with city staff so we can explain what this project is. This one is not so technical that it's going to require that. So it's kind of incumbent upon me, Deborah, to make sure that I got all the right information in that RFP that goes out.
Thank you.
Once we get RFPs submitted, then we go through an internal scoring and evaluation process. And so we use different staff from different departments. And so it's not just planning looking at this.
Mhm.
There's the contract negotiations component of it. And then we engage our legal department as well for that contract to make sure it meets all of our standards and protocols that are available. And the consultants, legal counsel, and what they're looking for. And so there's some back and forth that occur.
Okay.
Liam?
Yeah, so it seems like this entire system's pretty like a well-oiled machine working along. Seems like everything's in order, but I guess just to ask like a good question, is there any difficulties in this process that we could or might experience? Or is just everything just gonna, I guess, work as intended?
Well, any mechanical device can and will fail. So we always start with that premise. No, so I'm pretty confident. We'll find a consultant or consultants who will find this project interesting. some of our past consultants that we've used, they may say, oh, this is just a progression of where Newberg has been going with activities in and around its downtown area. Contract negotiations, we always work those things out. So that's not an impediment. And consultants are always very, very good about meeting their deliverables. And so we'll have timelines in that RFP of different things that need to be submitted, because through this process, you will get briefings and the opportunity to talk with a consultant and get your feedback as well. And as I've kind of alluded to on a couple of occasions, about what level of engagement do you want to have as well? You know, we come up with a canned set of questions, and you're trying to outreach as many people as possible, and you're trying to leverage the dollars you have. Might the commission members want to go out and ask some questions, as long as we do it such that the same question is asked in the same way that provides the ability for responses. So it's a lot of like survey work. If you start to go off key, then all of a sudden we get a lot of kind of out of the box responses. So the consultant and I will work through all of that.
Hey,
Do you have a target date, Doug, that you would have the consultant selected?
My goal, Chuck, is to have the consultant on board the first part of July, because that will basically give them about 11 months to go through this process.
okay. So by the time we meet again in mid-August, the consultant will have had a month, 6 weeks, roughly under their belt of kind of figuring out how they're going to be doing what we've asked them to do, and we'll be able to get some input or give some input and get some feedback on, you know, the expectations of the how they're going to accomplish this.
How are you going to get her done?
Yeah. You know, for the commission members that, you know, this is kind of new for, if you have seen the budget, how things kind of have broken down in the budget, you can kind of almost construct almost a work plan from that, because you can see, hey, we're budgeting so much for things like, you know, brochures, so much for a public meeting. Now that public meeting, that's going to be coming most likely more towards the end of the process, whereas the information gathering, that's going to be more towards the beginning of the process, and we have, you know, certain amounts budgeted for that. So the way I see it, we have this process where initially the consultant's going to come in, they're going to be doing a lot of the groundwork, and there is a point where we can insert ourselves, and, you know, maybe give them direction on, we want you to ask about this or talk about that, or, you know, when you interact with folks. And then later on, we'll have a chance to, you know, kind of digest what they've gotten so far, and direct how well we could even get into, if we really wanted to, we could get into the nitty gritty of what we want to be on the brochures or whatever, or trust them to come up with a design and just approve it. We're not having, yes, we are hiring help, but we collectively, we're the boss. So within the bounds of the project, we'll be able to kind of steer things along. And, you know, there's always a chance it could go completely off the rails. A lot of that may depend on the consultant, if they misunderstand what we ask, and there's always that chance. But we have opportunities to maybe rein them back in, or direct them into, put them in the, you know, back on track for what we are wanting. So.
Yeah, I think, you know, just stepping back and thinking about what we've done over the last 7+ years, there's a lot of information that's out there. So it's really about, it's the education piece. You know, what does it mean if you were able to ultimately achieve a National Register Historic designation for your downtown? And the commission's had conversations that, well, you have primary structures, you have secondary structures, you have contributing structures and you have non-significant structures that are in the downtown area. And we've talked about, different communities have ratcheted up pretty much just like, well, if you put a hose bib on the outside of your building, you need historic review. If you put an HVAC unit on the top of your roof, you need a historic review. But the other end of that continuum is, well, if you put a hose bib on the outside of your building and it's 2022 and you're keeping your sidewalk clean, there's no harm, no foul. And if you put an HVAC unit up on top of your roof, there's no harm, no foul. Questions may come up from property owners and businesses about, well, is this going to mean more regulations? So if I want to address the change of the facade of my building, what does that mean? So we start with, well, these are the programs that we already have in place. So I'll use Chapters as an example. Chapters got a state grant from state parks to be able to do that. And they recreated as closely as possible the front facade of that building. They did not deal with the west side or the east side or the rear of the building. And so they went through an historic review process. With, if you had a National Historic District, do you want to ramp up those regulations? Now, when I say this, I'm talking about a number of years down the road. This education piece isn't going to mean, immediately things happen. There's a process because we'd have to get more grant money to be able to hire consultants to go through the process, to prepare all the information to submit to the National Park Service. But you could also do a local district, and it's a local designation, and maybe the regulations we have in place are just fine. We've already got locally identified historic resources. We have talked about, well, when that was done, in the 80s and the 90s, we now have a whole bunch more structures that are over 50 years old. Do those need to be in inventory? And you can come up with a model about, again, what's primary, what's secondary, what's contributing, what's not. So right now, I don't know what the answer is going to be, but the value in this is we've talked about it for years, and we're now on a path to start to embark to figure out if it might be workable or not.
Okay. Well, this is really for our education. Are there any other questions about the documents that we have in our packets? The application or the grant has written, or anything that you feel like you need a little bit more information on? I want to make sure that the commission members here are feeling like you are informed of this process. Yes, it's happening, but we're going to be involved. Yeah, Liam.
I guess, well, obviously we as a commission have some say in this. I'd like to know what the commission thinks about, like, what do we want? I guess, what exactly do we want to guide this specialist in? I'd like to know, I guess, what the commission thinks about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking now, this is, my opinion is not the rule and guide, because I will admit if depending on what we find, I'm willing to change and reevaluate my opinion based on evidence. I would love to see a historic district downtown, and I would love to have it on the National Historic Register. But I'm well aware that might be a hard sell to some of our property owners. And I really am not comfortable with the idea of forcing, ramming something down people's throats, because that never works. That we don't, honestly, we need to have so much buy-in to even get that. If you can't even get a simple majority of folks agreeing to that, it's not a good deal. But I am willing to, accommodate something. I think if we could get something, maybe, a local district or state recognized district, start, if we need to start smaller, we can start smaller. Now those are kind of the end process. So that is really going to be informed by what we find out with our current research and our current outreach. Because the whole point now is we're going to be taking the temperature of the community. We're going to be asking our property owners, asking our business owners, what do you want to see? Because I would admit, as as a historian in Newberg, I kind of exist in this bubble of like-minded people, and we all say, "Oh yes, I would love to see, a historic district in Newberg, and wouldn't that be great if we had that?" But what does the person who owns, the Union Block building think? If they say, "Whoa, goodness, that I'm really concerned about what that's going to do to my ability," like Doug was saying, if they're concerned about their ability to make renovations to their building, to keep it current so that when they have people who want to lease space from them, that they can, do that, have an attractive space. And, so this temperature taking that we're going to be doing is really going to guide our future decisions. And so what I want out of this project, and I know I'm kind of rambling at this point, sorry, I'll get to the point. What I want out of this project is I want to have a good sense of what our property owners, what our business owners are willing to accept. And part of it is also we're asking our consultant to do a bit of salesmanship here, to let folks know that, hey, yes, we can do this. And since we may be the ones writing the rules, us, City of Newberg local, we can make those rules as lax or as tight as we want. And if the majority of the property owners say, you know what, we would love to see, we would love to have strict, if anyone does any work, strict, codes that say you can only use period materials and period style, then yeah, we can run with that. Or if they say, well, I want to have, the option to, renovate and maybe update my building, especially some of these older brick buildings, people may be saying, well, we want to update them because we know the next earthquake might cause that brick facade to come down. So, yeah, Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would imagine that part of the outreach is educating the business owners about what successes have looked like in other, because if you ask me, if I owned a business downtown and you asked me, what I thought of these things, I would want to know examples.
Exactly.
I'd want to see, well, what happened in this community over here versus this community when they did national versus a local district.
Yeah.
So I think I'm imagining that's what Doug has in mind when he says the outreach to the businesses is a lot of education around exactly what those things are.
Yeah, and part of it may be our consultant maybe just looking up and finding out what kind of, if we had designation X, what kind of grants or programs would accompany, if we had designation X, what could our business or our properties potentially qualify for? Because there may be some things that, yeah, you could get this grant, this matching grant, but you have to be in a national historic district, state recognized historic district, a local historic district. That would really be something that could be a good, carrot. Not that we really have a stick, really, but
right,
we can add another carrot to our handful of carrots.
Sure, you have to outline the pros and cons of even going forward with it. Sure.
And see, the problem is I don't know all the programs that are available, whereas the consultant, they are going to be finding out for us, because they will have someone who's got the time and the resources to go out there and look and say, okay, yes, here is kind of the menu of options. So does that help?
Great.
Okay. Well, any other comments, questions? I know I ramble a lot.
That's not a problem. I guess, yeah, like we as a commission, we've kind of talked a lot about like the regulations and a lot of the, constraints of being on a national register. But I guess like, yeah, maybe we should shed a bit more light on a lot of the positives that could be brought to that. And like, if this is like a salesmanship marketing thing, I guess, what are some of the major positives and benefits for property owners for these businesses to be on a national register? So, yeah.
Yeah, and see those are questions that our consultant is going to be able to do some data gathering and look at other communities that have done something similar. Say, look at other communities in Oregon, because I know there are other communities in Oregon that have gone through this process, and they have data. They can say, hey, once we went through this process, this is the kind of thing that we found our property owners could do. And these are the kind of grants or the programs that they could take advantage of. Or there's probably even some data out there of once we went through this process, this is how it affected tourism. That is that could be a real great thing for someone who owns a business downtown, that they would want to hear. Oh, you mean a National Historic District means there's going to be, a noticeable bump in tourism? I don't know. Is it 5%, 10%, 3%? But any percent, if bump is better than what it was previous, and if that outweighs the trouble, hassle, if any, of having a district, wouldn't you want to have, increased tourism, even if it is just 3%? That's still 3% more than what you had before. So, all right.
Good conversation.
I know we haven't heard from a couple folks. I want to make sure that there's space for everyone here. If you have opinions, your voices are valuable.
I was just kind of reflecting on a couple of times that I had an hour and a half to spend in both Silverton and McMinnville. And they've got good signs on their buildings for the history of that building. And it's something we've talked about as part of this. But I was just a loose pedestrian in the district. And I guess my interest in history kind of drove it too. But to see the story of some of the buildings was interesting to me, just as a walk around geek.
Yeah. Silverton is a great example of a community that has really taken their little historic core and put in a lot of effort to promote it, to catalog it, to bring people into it. So okay, well, I guess I'm going to maybe just say kind of a last call for anyone who's got questions, because I don't want to I value your time, and if we truly are done discussing, then we can kind of move on with the agenda. Okay, well then, I guess I'm going to scroll back up to my agenda so I can see it. If you think of anything.
Well, Mr. Chair, I do just have a couple of things that are not on the agenda that have
Oh, okay.
kind of popped up.
A little bit of
since we sent this
housekeeping.
out. Yeah. So the American Rescue Plan Act. So
Okay.
the budget committee has awarded the funds. So there were $5.3 million that were available. There are several businesses in the downtown that were recipients of funds.
Oh, wonderful.
And so as the finance department and city manager's department is working through that process on MOUs and so forth, there are a couple, just kind of wanted to let you know. So Ruddick Wood
Mhm.
received some funds. They've reached out to me about some exterior modifications to their building. It would not be something that the commission would need to hold a hearing on.
Okay.
It would be a staff decision. So in conversations with them, there's a daycare facility that's going into where Wilcutt's Real Estate used to be in the downtown on First Street.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're looking at some things. I'm not sure yet if there's any exterior modifications. There might be something off the back on the Second Street parking lot. The old Bank of America building, not ARPA related, but Bank of America is going to be removing their teller machine. And so the property owner has reached out to me about some exterior modifications to that building, and it's on the historic. So we'll take a look at that. We'll see where that particular project goes. The Minthorn Hall. Think about this. So GFU is thinking about relocating that building. So they reached out to
Ooh.
me. And it's on the National Register.
And it's not the first time it's been relocated. That's
It's
a
not.
very historic relocation.
So I will continue the conversations with the university about what their approach and attempt is to that one. Relocations would be something that the Historic Commission would take a look at. So we went silent for several years where there was not much. The commission has not had a hearing for several years now.
I remember when we used to have hearings.
Yeah. So there might be some projects that you would need to have a hearing on. The cultural center, so the activation of the second floor for the theater. There's some historic review that needs to be done on that project as well. Again, that one would be a staff review of that particular proposed modification. So again, we kind of went for a number of years with nothing, and then all of a sudden there's maybe a half a dozen projects where it's related to an identified local historic resource or national registered resource.
That's good. That's good. That kind of churn, at least in my opinion, that tells us that things are moving, things are progressing, and people are thinking about, these historic buildings. And I know some of these things have been vacant, or like the National or the Bank of America building has been vacant-ish, except for a teller machine in front of it for a while. So, but that's actually kind of encouraging to hear this kind of churn. And actually, boy, I gotta admit, I'm really excited to hear about, just because it's a very interesting thing, of Minthorn, because maybe the other commission members may not know, that building was originally on the south side of town and was moved up to its current location on log rollers by a team of horses in the late 19th century. So it's not the first time the building has been picked up, or would not be the first time a building had been picked up and moved.
Some trivia on that. The spelling of Minthorn on the hall is different than Hoover Minthorn. Check it out.
So same family, but kind of two different branches.
No.
So I thought they were.
If you ever heard the full story, it takes about a half an hour.
All right.
I'm not going to tell it.
Well, maybe we'll have to sit down sometime. Well, speaking of sitting down sometime again, if there's no other business before the commission, let's talk about our next meeting, August 16th of this year. I know I've asked this many times before, Doug, but what are the chances of us meeting in person on August 16th?
It's possible to do. State law has changed, so we have to do a hybrid system.
Okay.
We only have one space that's available that has the correct technology, and that's the public safety building.
Okay. So
So
we'd
big-
still,
Could not meet in City Hall where we
nuts.
used to meet. We do not have the technology capability in that room to do both
Okay.
an in-person and a Zoom meeting.
Okay. So just for my own information then, it's not necessarily pandemic related. It's just that state law has changed and it's requiring that we offer both.
Yep, we have to offer both. That
So the
started on
okay.
January 1st. So that also means is that I need to have two people to be, so not only myself, we have Faye, but then we have to have somebody who's doing the minute taking and running the Zoom. So it takes more staff resources.
I see. Okay.
And so
Okay.
the council right now is the only one who's meeting in the hybrid mode. Everybody else is
Okay.
continuing to meet
Okay.
on Zoom.
Well, nuts. Okay. And here I was getting excited about meeting downtown again.
Well, the city recorder has told me, it could be that your remote access could be as simple as telephone,
Oh, okay.
which would mean that maybe, the conference room might work, but then I have to work with IT about the star phone that we have and how we notice all of that and how can people call in. And I do have a conference call number that I've used.
I see.
Since I've been here. So this planning commission has asked me the same question. When are we going to start meeting in person again? So I'm trying to noodle through the logistics of how I'm going to make that happen.
Sure. Well, I understand. It's not bad. It's just that, man, I spend all day on Zoom. I'd like to meet with people face to face at some point. Oh goodness. Technology is great, but not when you have to do it for the majority of your day. Okay. Well, with that, we've talked about the next meeting. Unless there's any further business, I'm prepared to adjourn. It's last call.
So move.
Okay. I'll accept that motion to adjourn, and I'll bang my gavel, knock. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Well,
Thank you
yeah,
all.
thank you.
I appreciate y'all making the effort and taking your time.
Yeah,
Thank
see you
you.
next time.
Yeah. See you next time. So,
See you in August.
yep, August 16th. Thank you all.
All right.
Well, have a great day.
You too.